is just going to be so we can share the slides after for those individuals who weren't able to make it here with us today. So my name is Brooke Snyder. I'm part of the Direct Care Workforce team, and I'm just going to be running the slides for us today. So just a reminder, we are recording. You should have got that little alert. If you have any questions, please know that we are monitoring the chat and we'll be able to ask questions in the chat. You're also welcome to raise your hand throughout the presentation and ask questions that way. We will be posting this recording as well as any additional meeting materials to the ARPA grant website. We'll be dropping that link throughout the chat throughout the presentation. And if you have questions, let us know on that. If you're listening by phone, I see a few folks on here. You are welcome to press *6 to unmute yourself or *9 to raise your hand, and I'll be monitoring folks who are raising their hands and I'll call on you. We are using closed captioning, so if you're not seeing those coming up, down at the bottom you should see closed captioning has been enabled and you can watch that. You can also remove that if that's bothersome to you. And then our team information can be found at the Direct Care Workforce Collaborative website. Again, that'll be something dropped into the chat for more information on this grant and other projects we have going on. So at this point, I would like to hand it over to Tammy Kim Mander to talk to you a little bit about why we're here today.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am the training grant administrator for 1.05. And just to kind of give you an overview, the purpose of the training grant is to provide funding for training opportunities related to direct care workforce in order to gain higher level skills that promote greater retention within the direct care workforce, and specifically for the HCBS providers. So the grant is designed to supplement, not supplant training. So if there's like a annual training that you do every year, this grant is not for that. It is to supplement your already existing trainings. Next slide, please, Brooke. The eligible applicants are HCBS waiver providers. So, but this also includes certified nurse aides and home health aides working in long-term home health for HCBS waiver members. You must be a Health First Colorado provider. This also is training vendors are also eligible to apply for this training grant. If you are a training vendor or provider and you want to conduct a training, do trainings for anyone who have for HCBS providers, then you may also apply for the grant. The eligible expenses are for the cost of the training and any training materials that are related to the training. And so when you submit your application, all of that should be included in your budget worksheet. Next slide. The guidelines are really only that you can only apply for one grant at a time. We are having different grant application cycles. So this first one is going to, next slide, please. I think it has the dates. Thank you. Yeah, the grant award cycles are listed below. You'll receive all information and updates on if your application is missing any information, or if we've received it and it's complete, you will receive notification via email. Next slide. You can apply here. It's all on the ARPA Grant Opportunities website. There's an application, there's a budget worksheet that is in Excel. You just download it, fill it in, and then you attach it to your application. We also need a W-9 and a certificate of good standing from the Secretary of State, and a cover letter signed by your executive director or authorizing official. And now we're just leaving it open to questions. For questions, Heather Johnson, who is the Direct Care Workforce Unit supervisor manager is going to answer questions for you. I'm
Hello,
looking at the
everyone.
chat.
Yeah, feel free to drop questions in the chat. Raise your hand, come off mute. I do see Stephanie's question in the chat. She asks, and she's verifying if CCB or SEP agencies are eligible to apply. If you are providing services for HCBS waiver members, you are eligible to apply. While you're not technically, it kind of depends where you are in the state. Some CCBs are the provider as well. Some CCBs, you're working with case managers. There's kind of a lot of stuff going on. So if you are involved in the HCBS waiver world, we welcome you to apply. What information is recommended for the cover letter? I will back up real quick. We understand a lot of the folks that are applying or interested in this grant might not have had any previous experience with applying for grants. So we are trying to make it as easy as possible and still follow our guidelines. So what's important for our cover letter is we want to make sure the person applying for the grant is actually able to speak for the agency and has financial authority. And if they do, that's great. The cover letter will show that. And if not, then the cover letter is really detailing, hey, this is who we are. We're applying for this grant. The person that applied for the grant who's running it has that, can speak for the company, can make financial decisions for the company. So it kind of goes hand in hand with having that financial authority piece. We want to make sure that the person in charge of the agency who's going to be signing that contract knows what's going on. So that's kind of the basics. The cover letter does not have to be too in detail, and we'd really like to capture a lot of that within the application itself. I'm going to make sure I got them all here. I'm writing to request for clarification related to the training grant eligibility criteria under the additional eligibility activities section of the grant description training. Okay, it's a long question. I'm going to look at this. Could you please elaborate on the terms of training provider and business? So I realize the question, and I will find the link here for folks if they are not. Hold on one second, because it might be helpful for you to look at the ineligible activities list. So I will drop that in there. And also where you can find it along with all the other information. And then I'll go back up to your question. Can I elaborate on the training provider or business? So with this, I think what you're asking for, and feel free, Edward, to come off mute if or in the chat if I'm not getting it, is you were wanting to know, maybe I'm trying to find it here. Hold on one second. Training provider business and online platform development infrastructure costs. So so it cannot be for the online platform development infrastructure cost for a training provider or HCBS provider. It's probably not worded as clearly in there as would make more sense, as would make sense. So that's so we're not, the grant is for the actual, is for training and stuff involved around the training, while we understand that an LMS is very, is important in a lot of training. That this grant does not support an LMS. So whether it be a training provider or even a HCBS provider who's wanting the infrastructure costs for that LMS, that learning online platform learning management system, that is not allowed in this. Hopefully that answered your question, Edward. I'll check to see if I see any more down there. Okay.
Heather, I'm keeping track of the questions.
Oh,
so if it's
perfect.
easier, I can just read them to you as they come in.
Oh, sure.
So we have Steve asking that we are interested in the dollars to digitize and the training grants. Could both be awarded to us as a PASA?
Yes, we would ask, and I think there might be a spot on the application that does ask if you, well, I think what we really want to know for this is, I mean, by all means, tell us, like, if you're going, like, we're going big, we're doing this, that's helpful information for us. And I would say, like, we would have to be really close on running out of money before we would really consider how we might award one grant versus another, right? And we're not there yet. This is our first cycle. We have $9.5 million between this and our direct care worker grant that's going to be coming out with this. So we have right now the money is there. So please ask. I want to look on the application because there is a spot on the application where it does ask you close to the bottom. Additional funding. Does your company or organization plan on utilizing additional grant funding for this training project? If yes, please provide details. So if it is related to this project and you're looking at 2 different ones, then yes, please provide it here. If you're applying for different grants and they really are all benefiting your agency, but not puzzling together, you don't need to include it here. It's fine if you do.
Perfect. And Edward says thank you. So you were able to answer his previous question. And then Daryl asks, are the internal costs or salaries of existing personnel used to conduct training and oversee the training aspects eligible for reimbursement? These individuals would be pulled from normal activities to perform this training.
So that is a little tough to answer, without really seeing the whole, how it would really pan out. The best way to look at it is the money is really for the training, and we understand that there's that alternate support, or the whole thing needs to happen for the training to happen. But it would really need to look like if this person is already on your payroll, then how is that making a difference with this? If they're already an employee and getting paid, then how is this money not supplanting what they're already doing? The other thing to look at is what is the sustainability of that in the future? So I would always advise folks to include sustainability in that if they're looking at some ongoing stuff, because it kind of helps paint the whole picture of what's going on there. So wages can be considered, and I say wages versus salaries because salaries kind of already assumes they're already employed, and there's a lot of stuff wrapped up in that salary. So we'd really want it spelled out. An example of wages would be, I have 34 staff that need to do this training, and we think it's really important, but we need help paying for them to attend this training because they need to be paid for their time, right? So that's a good example of when wages would be factored in. Salary, when you're asking for an entire person to do this, would really need to see how, are they doing training or are they just setting up training? Because that's kind of a different thing. It really needs to be spelled out. So I'm going to say wages and salaries can be considered. It really needs to be how you are detailing what that really looks like in the application. If you are hiring a brand new person for this, that would make a difference with their salary versus someone who's already on the payroll, because then we're wondering, where's that, it gets a little muddy there. We're trying to figure out what's going on. So probably not the best way to answer your question without all the details, but I would detail it all out. Feel free to add additional documents, or you can definitely expand on the budget worksheet, adding extra sheets to kind of explain things. I would still go back to the real goal is to get this is for this to be for training. So tying it back into that, what is our outcome? What are we doing? That would be really important to include with wages and with salaries.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather. Andrea is asking, can I please go back to the eligible expenses slide? Yes, hold on one second. All right, we'll leave that here. And then Alex is asking, if we submitted our application on 9/30/22, do we need to modify and resubmit an application? Has the application changed from September?
So the application has not changed from September. What has changed from the beginning to through last week is some of the additional information that's come out. The FAQ has been updated. So there's just been additional information that has come out. So if that informs your decision a little bit better, then by all means, email us and let us know you want to retract your application and complete a new application. You don't need to add you just need to do the application and the worksheet budget. You don't need to resubmit the W-9 and all the other stuff. So it's an option. If you don't think you hit the mark, we encourage you to email us, let us know you want to withdraw your application and redo it. If you feel that your application hit the mark and you want it to be reviewed as is, then you are fine. There will be a change to the application starting the next grant cycle, which will be December 1. And not so much in the questions, but maybe, we just feedback and clarifying maybe what we're looking for in those areas. So that it'll be tweaked a little bit, but it will not be changed until after 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, November 30th.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather. The Child and Family Therapy Center of Denver is asking, is there an update on the ability for grant applicants to put a 25.5% line item to cover the tax ramifications of receiving any grant funds? We HCBS providers run on razor thin margins. We're running at a loss, so we don't have the funding and operating budgets to cover the 25.5% of any funds granted to pay the associated taxes. Alliance has asked for this on behalf of its member PASAs and CCBs, so wondering if there's been a decision.
I have no answer to this. I definitely would, we would take your name and email, and we would add this to our FAQ. I would want to make sure that our ARPA team, that we're being consistent with the messaging on that.
Perfect. That sounds great. So if you wouldn't mind putting your contact information in the box, we can certainly take that back for you. Edward is asking, could you please provide examples of what a training entity could eligible for under the grant? Edward, we might need just a little bit more information if you wouldn't mind coming off mute and letting us know what you're looking for there.
Morning. We are consulting firm with established program for HCBS providers, and we would like to ask if we can be eligible to apply for the grant.
So yes, if you are providing services for HCBS providers, like here'd be an example I think of, like motivational interviewing, right? Like there's been a lot of requests from the providers we work with for this. We are developing this training that will be related to motivational interviewing that will help them. And this is what we need to build this motivational interviewing training so that we can have it available for these providers. That's just an example, but yes, the key would be that you're providing this training to HCBS providers. So as a training entity, you are allowed to apply for the grant as long as your audience is that HCBS provider.
All right, perfect. He says thanks. Daryl Perkins is asking, online training software that offers a variety of educational components, would that subscription be cost be reimbursable? These trainings could cover CNA CEUs, but also offer additional skills. Want to make sure that since the subscription allows 100% access to all trainings, even though some trainings could be considered normal ongoing CEUs.
So that is kind of that is the issue we run up against with subscriptions, because it is more for those broad training. So in the ineligible activities and items list, it does call out, I think it says individual subscriptions. I'm trying to read it how it has it here. Give me 1 second. I know it's there because I was just working on it yesterday, but online platform, nope, that's not it. Individual memberships and subscriptions, because the content is general in nature, that is why they are on the excluded list. And I know that gets a little complicated. Well, but they have these 6 trainings that would be really great. However, they have the other 14 trainings that are for initial and annual trainings. And so then there's no way for us to be able to demonstrate to the federal government and to CMS that we use this grant to supplement, not supplant. So if you have online trainings It would have to really be spelled out. So I'm going to say probably as a blanket not included would be an online subscription to a general training subscription that has just the regular trainings that would be there. If you have the ability to do a carve out with a vendor where we want to pay for these specific trainings, that's where you would say, hey, look, we're able to do this. This is what it would look like. You could include a vendor quote saying, you know, they're accessing it for these specific trainings. That would be more in line with it. And the other thing I would talk about with CNAs are, like, right now in Colorado, you can pretty much be a CNA for free because of some of the other grants going on, you know, within the community colleges. If you are, if you are a parent of an HCBS waiver member, there's some programs out there for you for that. So if you are asking for assistance, this grant to assist you with something, because they fall through the cracks in those other programs, that's where you would really want to explain it in your program. Because again, it's supplement, not supplant. So if we're looking at doing something that is already being done through another available grant, then that's going to cause issues with how this grant is audited. So we do know that there are definitely cracks that folks fall through. There's reasons they don't qualify. You would just want to detail that in your application about why you're asking for this, even though it's traditionally covered in this other avenue.
Thank you, Heather. Edward is asking, can a training entity apply more than once if two different sets of programs are offered for HCBS providers?
You can. You would have to close out the one grant. One grant would need to be closed before the other grant. You can apply for the other grant. So I look at that as like, we're applying now for this cycle. We are going to be wrapped up with whatever we're doing by April 30th. So then you'd have to close that out and then you can apply for a grant after April 30th.
All right. So far we are caught up in the chat. I don't see any hands raised. So we'll just give folks a few more minutes to chew on some of this.
And I will just remind folks, I think you've already seen it, the deadline is 5 p.m. November 30th. Our team, well, half of our team will be doing a kind of a basically step-by-step going through the application. I believe it is next Monday at, if I could find my calendar. Anybody else chime in if they know when it is? There it is. Next Monday at 2. At 3. So next Monday, the 21st, from 3 to 4 p.m., the team will be going through a grant application. Like the examples will be in there. They will be not related to HCBS waiver, you know, like this grant, because we have to make sure that we're using a valid example. But we'll go step through the application and the workbook budget, so that you can kind of see if you're wondering how I really need to get my application in, this will kind of help you spell that out, and it'll be an example. It'll also be recorded and up on the website if you cannot attend the training. So if you're new at applying for grants, that might be a good option for you to either attend the training or check back and watch it on the website. And I will find a link in there for that.
I put the date and time, but I didn't have the
Perfect.
Zoom info. So
All right.
if you could do that. And then while we're doing that, Andrea is asking, we would like to create a lead program where a few caregivers can be promoted to leads. Each lead will have a team of field caregivers. The leads will provide training to their teams. A manager will train the leads to provide those trainings to the caregivers. Is this program we are thinking of eligible? Would wages of manager and leads be eligible?
So as a big proponent for the direct care workforce, I really like when there's any sort of chance of growth and acknowledging people's growth within a provider. I look at that as if they're already being paid, how is this different? Again, that's that supplement versus supplant, right? So if you're doing a carve out where we're going to post this position, and this is what, you know, that's kind of where it really need to be spelled out there. Is that they're already being paid to do something. How do you differentiate what their normal job duties are versus what this specific lead program is? And so you might need to think about other ways that you can incentivize a person to take on a role outside of their job duties. And so that could be looking like, maybe it's a specific bonus amount that's, they do these things and then they're eligible for this bonus because they've taken on these additional roles that are not their normal duties. If I didn't answer your question, feel free to ask more or to come off mute. It's really hard because we have to make sure that we're really thinking about it, but we don't want to give, oh yeah, they said I could do it, because it really kind of depends on how it's fleshed out in the application and what it looks like.
Perfect, thank you.
So I would just say to everyone who's gonna fill out an application is just to be as detailed as possible, to provide as much insight and descriptions and clear indications of what the training grant funds would be used for. And as Heather said before, we have to consider sustainability. And so when you say like wages of managers or leads, how is that going to be sustainable after the grant funds have been spent? So, even things like that should be considered and written out in your applications.
Perfect. Thank you, Tammy. And I see that Heather found the Zoom for the step-by-step application we're doing next Monday, and dropped that in the chat as well. Andrea, a follow-up. Okay, so managers and leads learning and taking on new tasks to provide training would not necessarily be eligible because technically they're already employed.
Yes, so that's kind of a good way to look at it. Now, if it is purchasing the training materials for them to be successful in that, like that would be an eligible, like train the trainers. If there are, some staff development that needs to happen for them to be able to move into that role, like that's where the training grant would come into effect.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather. And we're caught back up again. So again, we'll just give folks a few minutes to.
I said it and then I didn't include it. So hold on one second. We would encourage you to bookmark or check this website. This is when we update our FAQs. It'll be on here. Recordings will be on here. So it's a good place to come back and find out more information about the grant.
Okay. I see that Amber is asking, what if you have an employee who is working part-time, but then the training would extend the hours that person is working?
So that would make sense because they're already in at this role and you're asking to add for this role. So I feel like that's a little bit, that is supplementing, right? The new duties and these hours would be for this very specific training related avenues. So, but as Tammy had said, you want to speak it to sustainability. We don't want this to just end at the end of the grant cycle. And realistically, some of it might, right? It might be one and done. It might be, we're going to try this. It could be like, if this is really successful, we're evaluating it. It's been really successful. So we are going to incorporate this into our budget, or we are going to seek these alternate funding sources to help sustain this. So just kind of think about how do you close the loop and making sure this is a real, we are doing due diligence to make sure that this will have the best positive effect. And I mean, are we going to hunt you down in 5 years to see if it worked out? No, but we want, ideally, we would want you to do really valuable things for your agencies, because that's why you're even here and asking for them. So just kind of look at how you can speak to future sustainability, if it's possible, evaluating it so that if you want to invest this money in the future. The more the merrier in that.
And I just want to add to that, for our team, we are part of the direct care workforce team. So that is a high priority for us, is to support the direct care workforce, to help and training them so that they'll stay employed longer. They'll be invested in your company and stay. And if you're providing these opportunities for additional skills and trainings, that's the overarching goal of our direct care workforce. So please keep that in mind too, that, we want to be able to offer these things to your staff so that they'll stay, you can hire new people, you can offer these new trainings and these opportunities for your direct care staff.
Perfect. Thank you, Tammy. So no more questions are rolling in. Maybe we'll do kind of like a last call for questions. Again, if there's someone that that wasn't able to attend this webinar, we are recording. We're hoping to add these questions to the FAQ and get that updated on the website as well. So yeah, last call.
All right. Well, I will thank everyone for attending and put a plug out. Please let other folks you might know in the HCBS world about this opportunity. Like I said, we do have $9.5 million in this fund that we would like to get out. Be mindful, the deadline is 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, November 30th, for this first grant cycle. If you do not make it this grant cycle, we will be letting folks know whether their grant is awarded or not. We encourage you to apply for additional grant cycles, just taking into account the feedback you've been given. So maybe you've thought of something different in between, right? So that might be super helpful. You can apply for every grant cycle that's out there as long as you don't have an open award. And we will be requesting folks that do get awards, if they are interested in kind of building a community of assistance for each other, so that you guys can have folks who are kind of going through these grant process and can lean on each other. If you have hiccups, if you have questions, or if you have successes, we would love to make that option available. So we will definitely ask folks if they are willing to maybe be a source of support for other folks. And again, it is optional, but we would love to grow a community of this so folks can kind of really learn from each other. Perfect. Well, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. Please don't worry about applying. Just try it out. If you miss the mark, come to the application when we'll have continued webinars to kind of help folks along. And ideally, this kind of helps grow some skills and helps folks maybe be able to apply for other grants that are out there when this one is over, that helps them sustain.
Perfect. It looks like just a shout out or just a question for the group. Kat is asking, does anyone have a resource for recommended trainings for PASAs and DSPs? So if you have feedback, maybe drop that in the chat for Kat. All right. Well, we'll leave it open just for a little bit in case people have suggestions for Kat. Otherwise, thank you all so much.